Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
So, if you're like most people, you've probably spent the last year just grappling with these twin anxieties of high interest rates and uh, staggering home prices.
It's been a really tough market.
It has. And lately, there's this bold idea being floated around. You've probably heard of it. It's coming from political figures like former President Trump, FHFA Director Bill Polt, the 50-year fixed-rate mortgage.
Right.
And the pitch, on the surface, it sounds irresistible. You extend the loan to 50 years, you get a much lower monthly payment, and suddenly housing looks affordable again.
That's the soundbite, yes.
Exactly. So today, we're going to take this whole proposal apart. Our mission for you listening is to really get past that hype and understand the reality. Is this a magic fix, or is it, a financial trap disguised as relief?
And that's exactly where we need to start. Not with the marketing pitch, but with the regulatory plumbing of it all.
Okay.
Because right now, a 50-year fixed mortgage is, for all intents and purposes, theoretical. It's basically a political trial balloon.
A trial balloon. What do you mean by that?
Well, current federal rules, specifically the Qualified Mortgage Standard, or QM, caps conventional loans at 30 years.
And that came out of the 2008 crisis, right?
Exactly. The Dodd-Frank Act put that in place to prevent those super risky long-term low equity loans that, blew up the system.
So if a lender even wanted to offer one today, what would that look like? Is it even possible?
It would have to be what's called a non-QM, a non-qualified mortgage. It's a portfolio loan.
Meaning the bank just holds on to it.
The bank holds it. It can't be easily sold to big investors like Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, and that means it's riskier for the bank, which usually translates to weaker consumer protections or, and this is the key part, a higher interest rate. Yeah, because there's just less investor appetite. So for this to become a mainstream thing, regulators would have to completely rewrite the foundations of the U.S. mortgage market.
So it's not a simple fix. It would require a major legislative push.
A huge one.
Okay, but let's wave a magic wand and assume they do that. The whole point is that affordability win. Let's get into the actual numbers. What does a buyer really save month to month?
Right, let's break it down.
We looked at the analysis, and it used a national median home price. What was it, about $415,000?
Around $415K, yeah, with 10% down and a rate of, say, 6.17%.
Okay, so on a standard 30-year loan, your monthly principal and interest comes out to around $2,288. $2,288.
And if you stretch that same loan out to 50 years, that payment drops to roughly $2,022.
So that's a distance of $266 a month.
Yep, $266.
I mean, that's not nothing. That's real money. That could be a car payment, a big chunk of the grocery bill.
Absolutely. And for someone who's right on the edge of qualifying with those strict debt-to-income ratios, that $266 could be the difference between getting a loan and not.
That's the legitimate benefit they're pointing to.
It is, but we also have to bring in the local context, because a lot of you listening are in high-cost areas like Boston South Shore,
where the median price is way, way higher than $415,000.
Exactly. And on a, say, $700,000 loan, that saving becomes less impactful. Plus, some analyses show the 50-year might have a slightly higher rate, which shrinks the savings even more. Maybe it's only $135 a month on a $500K house.
So it's relief, but it's marginal. It's not transformative.
It's marginal. And that brings us to the pivot, the really sharp turn towards the downside.
Okay, let's go there. The devastating trade-off. You're talking about lifetime interest.
We're talking about an explosive amount of interest. Let's go back to that median home example. The analysis shows the 50-year loan costs, get this, about $389,000 more in interest over its life than the 30-year.
Wow, wait, say that again?
$389,000 extra.
$389,000. That number needs some context. That's a house in some parts of the country.
It's a house. It's 2 private college educations. It's an entire investment portfolio. It's wealth that you are just lighting on fire and handing to the bank.
Unbelievable.
And look at it as a percentage. Over 50 years, the total interest you pay is around 225% of the original home price.
So you're paying for the house more than twice over.
More than 2.25 times over. A 30-year is already a lot, around 110% of the price in interest. This more than doubles that cost to save a couple $100 a month.
That is just a staggering trade-off. It really feels like it's designed to maximize the bank's profit, not the borrower's wealth.
It is, and the damage isn't just that final number, it's in the mechanism of how you build wealth. And that gets us right into the equity trap.
Yes, the slow pace of building equity. This
Yeah.
is the real killer, isn't it? Because equity is how homeownership actually builds your net worth.
It's everything. And the 50-year loan has, like, a severely broken amortization faucet. You're paying all this money every month, but for decades, almost all of it is just going to interest.
So how slow are we talking? Give me the numbers.
Okay, here's a specific data point. Let's say you want to build $100,000 in equity just from your payments, not counting any market appreciation.
Right.
A 30-year borrower hits that milestone in about 12 to 13 years. A 50-year borrower, it takes them approximately 30 years to get to that same $100,000 mark.
30 years.
Yeah.
To build what the other loan builds in 12. That's a whole generation of wealth building just lost.
It's slow motion wealth building. And let's drill down into the early years because that's what really matters.
Let's look at year 10. That's a pretty common time for people to move or refinance.
It is. So Forbes analyzed this. On a $500,000 loan, after 10 years of making minimum payments on a 50-year term, you've paid off only about 4% of the original principal.
4%. After a decade of payments.
4%. You've barely made a dent in what you owe. Meanwhile, a 30-year borrower, by year 20, they're at 46% paid off. That 50-year borrower is still only at about 11% paid off by year 20.
And this slams right into behavioral reality because almost nobody keeps a mortgage for the full term.
Nobody, let alone 30 years.
The data is really clear on this. The average time someone owns a home in the U.S. is around 11 to 12 years. People move, they refinance, life happens.
The 50-year projection is almost irrelevant. The first 10 years are everything.
So the crucial question for you listening is this. If you take this 50-year loan and you sell in year 7 or year 12, which is normal, what's the immediate consequence of that snail's pace amortization?
It means you walk away with significantly less cash at closing.
Because more of the sale price has to go back to the bank.
Exactly. When you sell, the proceeds first pay off the remaining loan. If you've only paid off a tiny sliver of the principal, a huge chunk of your sale money goes right back to the lender. You walk away with less wealth to put toward your next home.
So you're basically sacrificing your next down payment fund just for a little bit of monthly relief today.
You're handicapping your financial future. And it creates a huge risk factor, too, the danger of being underwater.
Owing more than the house is worth.
Right. If you've only paid down 4% of your principal in 10 years, your equity buffer is razor thin. If home prices just flatten or dip by even 5%, you're trapped. You can't sell without bringing cash to the table. You can't easily refinance. You're just stuck.
Okay, I feel like we've painted a very bleak picture here. But we should acknowledge the niche benefits. There has to be some scenario where this makes sense, right, as a strategic tool.
There are a couple. First, that DTI qualification help is real. It can get a marginal buyer over the finish line. Second, it does offer cash flow relief. If you're disciplined, you could take that saved $266 and, pay down high-interest credit card debt.
But that word disciplined is doing a lot of work there.
A ton of work.
So who is the ideal candidate for this? Because it sounds like it's definitely not the average first-time buyer.
No. The ideal candidate is someone with a high income who's temporarily cash flow constrained. Think doctors in residency, lawyers waiting on a partnership, someone in a very high-cost market like Boston or NYC.
Who knows their income is about to jump significantly?
Exactly. They see this as a temporary bridge. They fully intend to aggressively prepay the principal or refinance into a 30-year as soon as they can. They're just using the low payment to qualify, not to live by, for 50 years.
So it's a qualification gimmick that requires huge financial literacy and commitment. For the average borrower, though, the very people this is supposed to help, it seems disastrous.
It is disastrous for the typical borrower who pays the minimum and struggles with budgeting. For them, it's just a trap.
What about the age factor? The average first-time buyer is, nearly 40 now? A 50-year mortgage means you're making payments at age 90. That just destroys the goal of a mortgage-free retirement.
It does, and it's especially bad for older buyers, people in their 50s or 60s. We see this on the South Shore empty nesters moving one last time. They should be reducing debt, not taking on a loan that will outlive them.
Right. And what about the local market context? You mentioned the South Shore, which is more stable than, say, a boom and bust market.
And in a stable or modestly appreciating market, that slow equity build really hurts. You can't count on rapid price appreciation to save you. Your mortgage payments are supposed to be building that equity buffer, and here, they just aren't.
So we've established it's a bad deal for most individuals' personal wealth. But let's zoom out. Does it even solve the bigger housing crisis, the systemic affordability issue?
The consensus from economists is a resounding no. It does absolutely nothing to fix the real problem.
Which is a lack of supply.
A chronic shortage of housing and high building costs. This is a financing gimmick, not a production solution. By making it slightly easier to qualify for a loan, you're just pumping more demand into a supply-starved market.
And more demand with the same supply means
Prices go up. It could actually make housing less affordable overall. It just lets people finance today's insane prices over a longer, more painful period.
it's treating the symptom, the high monthly payment, while making the disease, the high asset price, even worse. Okay, so let's bring it all home. The key takeaway for you, the listener. Given that most people sell or refi within, 7 to 12 years,
That's the window.
we have to shift the question. The question isn't, what does this cost over 50 years?
The relevant question is, what do the first 7 to 12 years of this mortgage look like compared to a 30-year?
And the answer is crystal clear. You get a slightly lower payment, yes, but in exchange, you get a vastly slower principal paydown, almost no equity build, and a much higher risk of being trapped if the market turns.
You're essentially gifting the bank hundreds of thousands of dollars in future interest for very, very minimal immediate relief.
That is the essential insight from this deep dive.
And maybe here's a final thought for you to chew on. If we all agree that homeowner behavior revolves around that first decade, shouldn't policy be focused on finding ways to reduce interest and principal costs in those critical first 10 years?
Instead of just stretching the pain out indefinitely.
Exactly. Things like temporary subsidies or first-time buyer relief, rather than relying on the hope that a borrower can refinance their way out of a bad deal down the road.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the world of ultra-long-term mortgages. If you have any questions about this podcast, or if you are thinking about buying or selling a house anywhere on Boston's South Shore, give Jim Aldred a call. He would love to help you.